Hey guys, I'm JanetOnOccasion, and today we are going to be here a long time. It's a roster reveal, which is awesome, because, you know, a lot to learn, but of course we're going to be here a while, so make yourself a cup of tea, alright? I have, so you've got no excuse. Made a cup of tea? Good. So, welcome back to TotalWar.com. We killed for the more, the ogres are coming to get you, as the famous song goes. If you've got the song out of your head yet, first, well done, and second, let's dive a little deeper on what these giant, powerful sods have to offer the world. It's still the first 60 seconds of the video, so I can't be saying naughty things. I'll end up demonetised. So, conquest and feasting and battles by the dozen. Yes, but who gets involved? Below, you'll see each and every Ogre Kingdoms unit the faction can hire. Much of them come under the monsters heading, as every ogre is a terror, no matter its size, and only the sport of Gnoblar swarms keeps this army from being nothing but a wall of meat and mass. I know it's I guess meat and mass. I guess mass is the issue. You know, Gnoblars, they're just a wall of meat. Anyway, or a shield of meat. They're a meat shield. Finally, as usual, things are subject to change. We'll be back with future details on legendary lords, their starting positions, and specific mechanics in short order. Alright, good. So remember, this will be a bunch of additional stuff over what we've seen so far. We've seen plenty of, footage of all this stuff. We've had the Ogre Kingdoms in battle in a few videos, even on this channel. Go check it out in the playlist below, in the Warhammer 3 News playlist. But, of course, this is the full roster, so it's going to have every variant and everything. So finally we'll get the actual full roster, which is very, very cool. Also, we've never had Gorges in a battle, and Gorges will turn up right here. He's the first one. So, Trade Lord Gorges, Tribe Stealer, Drake Crash, Gate Crasher, Horde Master Goldtooth, the shockingly obese, was one of many whelps, sired by the infamous Gofg, tyrant of the Goldtooth tribe. Like his brothers, Gorges grew up to become strong and fat. Unlike his brothers, he killed and ate his own father. As word spread of such prodigious deeds, many tyrants decided to join the ruthless new leader of the Goldtooth tribe, and soon, once again, the Ogre Kingdoms had an over-tyrant. So you might also want to check out the Gorges Goldtooth lore blog, where they go into a little bit more details. Again, I covered that in the playlist below. These days, grown older, larger, louder, and richer than ever, Goldtooth's coffers fill faster than his Gnoblars can count, yet Gorges' rampant success has not diminished his greed, or his all-consuming desire to conquer everything he sees. As the fattest lad around, Gorges rolls into battle on a custom-made Gnoblar pushed cart stuffed with gold, gems, and plunder, the glory of being too rich to walk. Writ large across the faces of his enemies. His iconic scepter is used equally to steer and smash skulls, while he is always chewing on a massive leg of meat, or equally using it to scratch himself. He is an inspiration and a hero to all ogres, and a terror to fight on the battlefield. It really shows the qualities that ogres hold in high regard. If this lump, this just this fat lump of I guess both regicide and patricide, I just look at him. Oh, he's awful. It's so Warhammer, I love it. So, selection of unique abilities. Everyone has their price. As your massive, powerful opponent sprinkles you with his spare gold, most combatants are going to rethink their place in the battle. So, is he actually going to be bribing people around him by throwing gold? Are they going to lower their combat stats because they're too busy picking up gold? Because that sounds hilarious if that's the case. He also has the Scepter of Titans. The legendary staff of Gorges grants him huge power boosts, particularly when taking on other ogres to retain his dominance. That will, I imagine, limit his campaign in some regards if his sort of a key piece of his equipment is best used against other ogres, but then you do have to wonder how often he'll need to use that, because the Ogre Kingdoms campaigns I don't think will be about widespread conquest, because they are very much about holding the Mountains of Morn, getting that trade, bossing around other ogres, you know, maintaining the kingdom and just letting the gold come to you, and keeping people in line. So I do wonder how this will play out. But you never know, he might have to fight ogres quite often to keep them under his boot. Not that he ever has much under his boot. He usually has the boot up on, well, up on this thing, doesn't he? Was I hanging off the edge? No, he looks quite comfy there, actually. Quite a lot of space in the front for him. Anyway, Scrag the Slaughterer. Scrag is the legendary prophet of the Great Moor, also known as the Gore Harvester and Moor that Walks. Again, playlist below for the lore blog on Scrag the Slaughterer. Dragging his massive meat pot behind him, attached to his back with a series of painful tearing hooks and chains, Scrag hacks and rips at his enemies in a glorious blood-fueled dedication to the Great Moor. In his wake, he leaves a trail of dismembered limbs and body parts, which it is the duty of his Gore Noblars to retrieve and deposit into his cauldron. I do love that Noblars sort of ride around on his cauldron, especially because he uses that to attack as well. He will swing it round and crush his enemies, so the idea of the Noblars just hanging on for dear life while that's going on is very fun. It's very good. It's very Warhammer. So, his history is as sad as it is brutal, brought to his current sorry state by a tyrant to whom he fed the wrong Noblar. However, the punishment only connected Scrag more to the Great Moor. More to the Great Moor. That's confusing, but you know what it means. Making him one of the most powerful gut magic wielders in the world. The lore of the Great Moor includes... Oh wow, it actually goes into the details here, because of course we have a magic blog already. There was already a magic blog. So, Brain Gobbler, which is a hex. The spellcaster chomps through a severed skull, gobbling up the brain and projecting the decapitated victim's worst nightmares into enemies' minds, sapping their will to fight on. Sounds pretty handy. Single target leadership debuff, always useful that. Overcast version has extended effect duration. Very nice. A next spell, Bull Gorger, is an augment devouring the heart of a bull Rhinox or Mournfang. Raw vitality is projected into the Great Moor, increasing the ferocity of the ogre's attacks. It's a single target large buff to melee attack and armor piercing weapon damage. Very, very handy, because ogres hit like trucks as it is. So, a big buff to that. Yeah, they're going to be able to take down pretty much anything quite quickly. Overcast version has extended effect duration, a very useful Tooth Cracker. By consuming a hunk of tooth-breaking granite, the spellcaster bestows the rock's resilience and the sturdiness of the mountains themselves into his brethren. Increases armor and missile resistance for all units in an area. This is incredibly useful, just massively useful for the ogres, because the Ogre Kingdoms units tend to have quite low armor, be very, very big targets for ranged units. So, yeah, increasing armor and missile resistance, it just means, you know, sort of cheap counters to ogres, like just crossbowmen, frankly, or, I mean, the Empire Huntsman would probably be amazing against most of the ogres' troops, just because they have that big anti-large bonus. So, units like that don't need to rely on armor piercing, ogres are the perfect target. So, being able to buff that armor and missile resistance is going to be a huge way to offset damage from these quite affordable sources. So that's really good. And Overcast version has extended effect duration. Very useful. So next up we have Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher is one of my favourite spells. I really like it. I keep forgetting what it's called, but I love it. So, stuffing a handful of bones into his mouth, the spellcaster crunches them up whilst cursing his foes who are crushed by a giant fist, which pounds them to dust. Fun. It looks really cool. I really love it on the battlefield. It looks great. Small AoE that deals large damage after a short wind-up with significant armor-piercing properties. Overcast version deals additional damage and armor-piercing damage. So it punches harder, I suppose. Troll Guts. Regeneration. After drowning the toxic and utterly repulsive innards of a troll... downing, not drowning. After downing the toxic and utterly repulsive innards of a troll, the ogre's wounds seem to stitch themselves together before their enemy's dumbfounded eyes. Significant single-target heal over time. So this can be used on other units as well, which is lovely. Overcast version has extended effect duration, which of course means more healing. Yeah, really cool. I really love Troll Guts as a spell, just because it really shows off just how sturdy the stomach of an ogre is. They can really stomach anything, because Troll Guts, famously not good for stomaching. Grum the Paunch, for instance. The reason why he's big and has regeneration is because he was force-fed troll meat, and that just so happened to imbue him with the power of troll's regeneration and make him all big, whereas usually it's just a funny sport that orcs play, feeding goblins troll meat and watching it regenerate inside them until they burst. Yeah, it's hilarious. So yeah, the fact that ogres can stomach that and actually benefit from it is pretty great. It's pretty great. It's pretty cool. Although, arguably, there is some magic, you know, being utilised here, but still. It's fun sort of characterisation, I guess. So anyway, the Maw, which is explosion. Very cool spell as well, this one. This you can see it in the Cathay, Ogres vs Cathay major settlement battle that's on the channel. The Butcher can summon the power of the Great Maw itself, causing the ground beneath to split wide open and crush any foe trapped within. It is a huge, long, wind-up explosion. Overcast version does more armor-piercing damage. It's big. This is a sizable thing. It's very, very big. So damage to huge, huge clump of enemies. As well as full access to the lore of the Great Maw, Scrag can summon units of Gorges to his side at a moment's notice. The Gorges are Scrag's army, about as close as he'll ever have to friends, fellow exiles and rejects from Ogre society that he found in the mountains after the Noblar incident left him wandering and armless. Very cool. So being able to summon a unit as powerful as Gorges, I think is really good. I think they have, do they have Stalk? I know they have Vanguard, but they're scary units. Hit hard, pretty quick. Yeah, very cool to be able to summon that. So, Ogre Kingdoms Lords, of course you have the Tyrant. Every clan has a Tyrant. I also love that they refer to them as Tyrants, and that's just like a normal thing. That's only got negative connotations to us, but to them, they're just morally ambivalent. They have no concern for morality. It's just eat or be eaten, that's it. They don't care whether it's right to do something, only that it feeds them. So to be so morally it's not even morally grey. Like, they're not even on the scale, you know? Morality just doesn't apply to them. So, yeah, Tyrant. Who cares? Tyranny? Whatever. Am I getting fed? Fine. So, yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty cool. So Ogres call the leaders of their tribes Tyrants, and it's easy to see why. Tyrants are the biggest and strongest individuals in a hulking race that prides itself on these physical features. To claim rulership over a group of Ogres requires a mighty brawler, a creature powerful enough to wrestle a giant to the ground or smash his way through a fortified gate using only his bare fists. An Ogre Tyrant uses his tremendous size and brawn to dominate, earning the right to command a tribe by displaying prodigious feats of what the Ogres respect the most. Strength, violence, extraordinary girth, and a healthy, all-consuming appetite. Sounds about right. Much of Ogre warfare revolves around the need to eat, and the deliciousness of well-cooked and smartly prepared flesh of all their enemies. Rat or lizard, human or greenskin. It's all good enough for the pot. In battle, this is represented by powers gained by the killing of routed enemies. Their various organs and limbs added to today's stew. Each kill builds a meter that allows for the use of 3 special abilities. So these are really cool. Again, we've seen these in action in campaign footage that you can see in the playlist below the Warhammer news. That's right, I put battles in there too. You know, it's all information. So Dismember is a hex that increases acceleration, speed, and charge speed, helpful for running down enemies or stopping in advance. So pretty handy, you know, pretty handy that, because honestly, I think decent cavalry charges will be the bane of Ogres, just because they're a big target. You know, one unit, like one Ogre, like 3 units of cavalry can charge it, because they just take up so much more space. So that damage is going to add up real quick, especially with the low armor. They're going to take a lot of damage very fast from things like charging cavalry. So this is very useful. We also have Massacre. It's a area augment that gives additional armor-piercing weapon damage, base weapon damage, and grants units the ability to cause terror. I mean, that's massive generally, just because it's percentage gains, and they already have such huge armor-piercing values that they're just going to hit like absolute trucks. It's amazing. Butcher, regeneration on a target unit that gives a very high healing per second and gives significant vigor regeneration. So another way to heal, and the vigor regeneration as well, very handy, keeps them in the fight for longer. Brilliant. Unlocking and using these abilities will be key to exploiting every aspect of the Ogres to your ends. Next up we have the Slaughtermaster. Around camp, butchers are given a wide berth, for it is best not to get too close in case they are looking for extra ingredients, as fingers or whole limbs would be known to go missing. In battle, however, butchers are most often found right in the thick of the fighting, where they use their cleavers and magic to great effect. The largest, most fearsome of these most powerful butchers are given the additional title of Slaughtermaster. And there are a few things that walk or crawl that such expert killers... given the title Slaughtermaster, and there are few things that walk or crawl that such expert killers have not chopped up and prepared for a ritual feast. So yeah, pretty scary, but I love that there's a decent sort of spellcaster lord choice. It gives just so much more variety when you've got those two things covered, you know, when you've got your melee lord and your spellcaster lord. So I like that the Slaughtermasters are here, straight out the box. Also, we have Ogre Kingdoms heroes. We have the Hunter. The Hunter looks brilliant. I love the jacket and everything. It looks very cool. That's the thing, we haven't seen Greasus, we haven't seen the Tyrant, we haven't seen the Slaughtermaster, we haven't seen the Hunter. Like, there's a lot of units we haven't seen yet in any of the footage or anything, so it's good that we're finally getting to see that they're in. So, Ogre Hunters are solitary wanderers. Outsiders from their own tribe, or perhaps even exiles. Those that survive become fiercely independent warriors and savvy stalkers of beasts. Bereft of a tribe's protection and beefy companionship, lone hunters must learn to track and kill, while simultaneously not becoming prey to any ferocious beasts. I think that's good advice for everybody. It is all too common for the hunter to become the hunted, although most no longer belong to a tribe. Hunters periodically drag an impressive kill back to an ogre camp for a special feast day. Some return to the tribe of their origins, while others wander throughout the kingdoms. An ogre hunter who has tamed a Stonehorn is a celebrated individual. Stonehorns are oblivious to the most grievous wounds, and the only proven way to break one in is to take one of its eyes, which is no mean feat given the beast's stone-armoured skull. After a time, the wound heals, often the eye even grows back, but by then the Stonehorn has been persuaded to allow a rider. A hunter might keep such a beast as his own mount, or, if he wishes to boost his reputation, he could gift the beast to a tribe, for Stonehorns are much coveted by all right-thinking ogres. Very cool stuff. So, nice mount choice there. Like a really nice mount choice. Very cool. A hunter aboard a Stonehorn gains a loyal companion, a fierce friend, and incredible melee weapon strength, alongside other significant stat upgrades. The 3 things any ogre needs. Has a pet, which he takes his eye from. This is horrible. Just ogres suck. They're just awful. I love it. It's just so Warhammer, you know? So, Butcher. Butchers are typically more rotund than an average ogre, and have even worse personal hygiene. They often resemble walking larders, for in addition to being caked in dried blood and offal, they adorn themselves in chunks of meat. Just grotesque. Along with an array of meat hooks, cleavers, filleting knives, and even special tenderizers tucked into a leather apron, or even pierced through their flabby skin. A butcher must be prepared to use these items in their gore-soaked rituals at a moment's notice. Of all true ogres, only the butchers do not wear a gut plate. They trust their guts to the protection of the Great Maw. So, ogres, they have all their sort of important organs in their belly. Which, again, it just shows the importance of their stomach, right? They literally have all of their most useful internal organs in there. So, kind of insane. That's why you just have the gut plate. Just the belly is the important bit. Everything else, whatever. So, very, very cool. So, Lore of Great Maw or Lore of Beasts. So it is nice to see they have access to Lore of Beasts as well, which I think is very cool. That's a nice, it fits. It works. Next up, we have the Firebelly. Firebelly is very cool. I really like these guys. Firebellies are the roaring, blazing priests of the ogre deity, known as the Firemouth. Quick to mirth and anger alike, Firebellies are garrulous. Great word. Garrulous and vital individuals who are readily welcomed into any ogre tribe. Fire burns within these larger-than-life prophets in a literal as well as metaphorical sense. Bald and broad, their ruddy skin glows from within, and their bare chests are tattooed extensively with symbols of destruction. When a Firebelly's wrath is roused, he can breathe out a cloud of billowing flame so fierce that it can melt through chainmail in seconds. Pretty crazy bunch, these guys. As well as access to the lore of fire, Firebellies have various abilities stemming from their eternal combustion. Fire Breath, magic missile, ability dealing fire, AP and explosive damage. Flame Incarnate, which is a ward save ability that grants melee damage reflection, so anyone that attacks it is going to hurt, and damage reflection is actually a per hit effect. So you take damage every time you hit someone, it isn't a proportion of the damage that you're dealing, which actually means that gaggles of infantry will take more damage from something like that than like a single model hitting really hard, because every time he gets hit, let's say he does 5 damage. If it's surrounded by infantry and they all hit it, they are all taking 5 damage, so it adds up way more, which makes a lot of sense, because that's the sort of thing that you would expect to sort of damage it on a scale, essentially, you know? So I think it's really cool. I think it's great. I think it's a really nice thing, damage reflection, and the ability to grant that is really cool. Also, Eruption, explosive attack dealing reasonable fire and magic damage. And they have the spell Law of Fire, of course, so lots of fire spells that you can use with the Ogre Kingdoms, which I really like. Honestly, Fire and Beast are two of my favourite spell laws, so I think I'm going to enjoy playing as the Ogres. Ogre Kingdom units. So here we have the Ogre Kingdom Infantry, Noblars. Noblars, obviously there's their, sort of rank and file. Not really rank and file, just their chaff, basically. Their numbers are in Noblars. Noblars are wicked creatures, possessed of malicious but limited cunning. They are not too distant relatives of the goblins that plague the world and are similar to their green-skinned cousins in height, with most specimens standing little taller than a man's waist. Noblars are cruel-minded, and their ability to do harm is only limited by their lack of physical strength. Ogres tolerate the creatures in their camps, especially if they make themselves useful by carrying and fetching things. In battle, a large group of Noblars can be, if not formidable, then at least a bit dangerous. Literally, just a bit. They're really not much, but when you got a faction made entirely of ogres, you need something crap, you really do. So, unique characteristics, not exactly loved by their larger compatriots, they are expendable in all ways. So, expendable is a trait in Total War Warhammer and other Total War games, actually, where if they run away, no one is going to have a leadership debuff as a result of witnessing them run. Unless they too are expendable. Expendable units don't like when other expendable units are running away, but, your trained troops will they won't care. They won't care at all. So the ogres, they'll see them, and they won't care if they're running away. So you can actually use them strategically without suffering leadership debuffs. And by that I mean you can sacrifice them strategically. So, absolute meat shields. For meat shields, they can hold the ground for just long enough to get their other forces into position, which is really all you need. Them taking the charge from cavalry, and then the ogres can countercharge those cavalry. Brilliant. Great use of them. Think of them as temporary hit points for your ogres. Slow, with low leadership, they're likely to be outmaneuvered and outmatched quickly on the battlefield. Yep. Then we have Ogre Kingdom's Missile Infantry, which is the Noblar Trappers. I like these guys. These guys are fun. They're really a lot of utility in a very cheap unit. Well, we don't exactly know how cheap, but I mean, they suck while having utility. You'll see what I mean. These outgoing and vindictive Noblars are the largest of their kind and delight in catching and torturing the small mammals that populate the foothills of the Ogre Kingdoms. Hunting is too sporting for these Noblars, who much prefer to trap their prey. To this end, they have perfected the art of laying out jagged man-snappers, pits lined with stakes, wickedly barbed nooses, and other cruel devices that will incapacitate the unwary. Once they have snagged something, they like to play with it, usually jabbing it with sharp sticks, before devouring it or bribing their masters with it as a light snack. They're horrible. Horrible little fiends. But unique characteristics, while just as expendable as their Noblar melee fiends. Sorry, friends. They are fiends, though. The first missile units ogres have access to, they do serve a role to harass enemies. They have vanguard deployment to get into position early, and when enemies get close, Noblar trappers, trapper units will launch a volley of traps, dealing damage and slowing them. Perfect for stopping a charge. So, of course, if these guys are stood amongst a bunch of ogres, and the ogres are the ones getting charged, then they're going to get slowed down and the ogres can countercharge. So, really good. And, it'll be harder for the cavalry to change their mind if they've all been slowed down. So it does say they have vanguard, but they also have stalk, which is a very important thing. Or at least they do in the build that we've seen the footage of. It's all still likely to change. But the fact that people can't see them and they have those traps is just a great combination. So, masters and ogres, my lord. Ogre bulls. Ogre bulls being the basic ogres. Big, brutish, and extremely violent, ogres are simple and straightforward creatures. They know what they want and use their brawn to take it. Ogres don't do contemplative head-scratching, preferring to smash things they don't understand. The bull charge forwards is their favourite way to crush any opponent and greedily grab what they can. Sorry, what they like. Not what they can, what they like. They can grab everything. They're very grabby. And what ogres want is power, respect, wealth, and, perhaps most of all, an endless supply of meat to feast upon. Ogres excel at fighting, and this, along with their greed and lack of concern about right or wrong, means that any ogre army is always ready for battle against anyone, anywhere. History is replete with examples of ogres being paid to fight, and even sometimes being paid not to join a fray. When they do not enter combat, ogres make when they do enter combat, ogres make frightening opponents. For they are savage and can sometimes devour the fallen where they lie. In the heat of battle, this horrifies their opponents, who must fight the blood-splattered vanquisher of their former comrades. They're really messed up, but who doesn't want a bit of a snack when you've been fighting all day? Given the chance, an ogre will barge into combat, using his great lumbering mass as a weapon. When working together, ogres can harness the tremendous momentum of their formation to deliver an overpowering impact on anything they collide with. It is a living avalanche, an immense tonnage of muscle and fat behind heavy iron gut plates that slams the enemy before the individual ogres themselves begin to lay about with their brutal weaponry. They often cover their offhand with a spiked metal gauntlet, a habit which originated from the traditional sport of pit fighting. This gauntlet can be used to bat aside even the strongest attacks. Variants: monstrous infantry, dual weapons, and iron fists. Very cool. So nice to see there's some variety there. So slightly different uses, which I like. Although the variants, to have one variant that is just monstrous infantry, they're all monstrous infantry, so I feel like that should have been in the whatever. I think they have two variants, I guess. Unique characteristics. All ogre units, bulls and above, cause fear, being the embodiment of cannibalistic nightmares for all races, young and old. They can also destroy walls and doors during sieges. So they can destroy walls during sieges, which is very cool. And, you know, very uniquely ogre thing. And also just hugely needed, because if you've got a faction that is, apart from its crappiest, like, just pathetic waste of space sort of things like Noblars, right? All of them are large units that can't climb ladders. It means you've got an entire army just funneled through the gates. One unit of, you know, Phoenix Guard can just stand to the other side of the gate and wipe out the entire army. It would just be ridiculous. So, yeah, you kind of need them to be able to do crazy nonsense like this. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Yeah, it makes them really formidable in a siege, which I feel is kind of the point of a faction like Ogres, that they should be able to just smash through everything. So I really like it. It's really thematic, and I think the gameplay will be exciting and interesting and varied. So good. Good. Smashing them apart with their weapons in bare hands. Yeah, bare hands, whatever. They don't need anything, just they're big. They are weapons. They're living weapons. They're living bashing rams. It's great. So they also all have the Ogre Charge ability, representing the powerful and terrifying impact that is visited upon any who stand in their way. It reduces bonuses for being braced against their charge. So basically they still get half of their charge bonus will apply, even against a braced unit that would normally negate all of the enemy's charge bonus. So very cool. Dual weapon bulls have a bonus versus infantry, while those with iron fists have additional melee defense and armor, and count as being shielded. Very cool. Very cool to see. So, what's next? Iron Guts. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Iron Guts. I didn't see the title somehow. Iron Guts are the ogres of any given tribe that have the most status and the best armour and weapons. They go into battle armed with massive two-handed weapons, be they enormous scimitars, rocks bolted to tree boughs with iron bands, or simple gigantic versions of the traditional ogre club. Iron Guts wear large, ornamented gut plates to show off their elite standing, and cover their meaty arms and boulder-like heads with heavy armour plating, cobbled together from various conquests over the years. Very cool indeed. Unique characteristics. Veterans of much combat and many feasts, Iron Guts are the strongest standard ogres. Okay, guys. I recorded this quite late. No, I'm quite tired, but I shall press on. Iron Guts are the strongest standard ogres anyone could hope to never see. So, very, very cool indeed. The caffeine will help. So, they deal armour-piercing damage and have vastly superior armour compared to their brothers. Oh, it's just ogres that are armoured, really. Will drink you under the table, eat you out of house and home, beat you at arm wrestling, then fall asleep embracing you. True friends. Aww. Man-eaters. Man-eaters inherit the cultures of the land they visit, rather than spread their own. These mercenaries learn the fighting skills and adopt a style of dress appropriate to the lands in which they fight. For example, a man-eater in the Empire might wear breeches and an ostentatious feather, with a brace of huge pistols across his chest. One who has been campaigning in the jungles of the Southlands, on the other hand, might go into battle as the Savage Orcs do, that is, wearing an undersized loincloth, a gut plate, and nothing else but smeary war paint. I just love that. Because they don't care. They have no ego. They're just going to mimic what's nearby just to fit in and get work and get fed and get, you know, paid so they can get fed. It's perfect. It's just so ogre-y. I just wish we got more variety in terms of the models. It'd be amazing if there was some sort of system of, like, depending on where you recruited an ogre man-eater, they would have a different appearance, but I mean, the classic man-eater appearance of that we're seeing here, with the waistcoats and the feathered hats and everything. They look amazing. I love them. I think they look absolutely superb. They are a very cool-looking unit. So, Ogre Man-Eaters are veterans of many campaigns, fought in far-off lands, travelling mercenaries beyond peer. They have spent decades accruing scars, tool tales, wealth and exotic war gear before heading back to the Ogre Kingdoms. Man-Eaters have fought throughout the old world and beyond, and many races attempt to recruit such fighters into their armies, promising food, gold, or whatever else the ogres want in return for their services. It is the pay that matters, not the foe, because they have zero morality, no concept of morality whatsoever. So although with some contracts man-eaters are rewarded fallen enemies to eat, lovely. So in those cases, the enemy may matter. Ogres eat anything, but they have preferences. So literally you get positions where two armies will ask man-eaters to fight for them, promising that they can eat the enemies, and they fight whatever tastes best. It's pretty grim. So, when they return to the Ogre Kingdoms, man-eaters take an opportunity to bore their tribe mates with long, fanciful war stories, some of which are even true. Although such tales are tiresome, an Ogre Tyrant is always happy if he can call on the services of one or two units of man-eaters to aid his tribe. They will be used to lead important attacks or hold a vital part of the battle line. Man-eaters are famously stubborn opponents and usually prefer to fight to their last breath rather than flee. Variants. Spelled wrong, right? It's variants. Variant? I think I spelled that wrong. It's fine. It's fine. Monstrous Infantry. Again, not a variant, but cool. Iron Fists, Great Weapons, and Pistols. Great Weapons and Pistols. We've seen those variants of Man-Eaters already in the Ogre Mercenaries free LC for Warhammer 2, but Iron Fists are new to that. Unique characteristics. The impressive and terrifying things they've witnessed far afield make all man-eaters immune to psychology, so no getting terrified or anything. No ogres are susceptible to fear, because they'll cause fear, but because they don't cause terror, they aren't immune to terror. These ones are, though. Man-eaters who have learned the ways of Empire pistols are just as deadly in melee combat, but can also fire on the move to soften up their enemies. I love they can fire on the move. It means you can still charge them right into combat, and they'll still get the benefit of their guns for those opening volleys. Spent enough time in foreign lands to have particular tastes, for food. Yeah. Saber-tusk pack. Saber-tusk packs are brilliant. They fit a really good niche because they're like a very fast unit, but they're also very ogre-y for a sort of, I guess, like a hound's analogue. So, red in tooth and claw, an apt description for a saber-tusk, as this powerfully muscled hunting beast is a creature perfectly evolved for slaughter. Sounds great. A lone saber-tusk will bound into the midst of its prey, slashing and stabbing with its elongated tusks, seeking to sever arteries and disembowel its quarry. The snarling assault that follows is a fury of pounces, bites and ripping claws. Should an entire pack of saber-tusks attack at once, then even the largest beasts that haunt the mountains of Morn can be quickly brought down in a howling flurry, leaving a red mist hanging in the frosty air. Awful. So it's the fastest thing in the ogre army, I think 95 speed, I want to say, and strong enough to pull down almost anything in a pack, though liable to rampage if hurt. So that is the big caveat here. If you have a solid front line and a very juicy back line, then get some shots into the saber-tusks. They'll rampage and charge straight into all your halberds or something and get cut down. So that's what you want to do with them. But obviously, if you're playing as the ogres, avoid that happening to them, and if you get them onto a juicy target, they will just tear them apart in seconds. They have a really high weapon strength, so very big damage potential. So they can receive a huge number of buffs, including Vanguard deployment, Stalk, and Frenzy from having an expert hunter in the same army. So I like the fact that they benefit from a sort of a decent hero selection. I think that's really fun. And it kind of encourages the world-building aspects of the game, which I really like. Because the Hunters were, I'm pretty sure Saber-tusks only existed as a unit that came along with Hunters in tabletop. I don't think you could field them on their own, I don't think. And so it's just kind of a nice way to do it, So you can have them on their own. They're just a unit like any other, but if you happen to bring the sort of associated hero unit, then you will get more out of them, and I think that's really nice. It gives a good amount of like player sort of flexibility and choice, and yeah, it's good. I like it. So, not a cute little kitty cat. Do not pet. I'm going to pet it. Gorges. Looking gorgeous. So, even more ravenous than an ogre, Gorges are degenerate eating machines consisting of nothing but taut muscle, claws, and ferocity. Hooray! I guess they're just ogres, but without the singing voice. I don't know. The beasts are so hungry that they will gobble up anything they can scrounge, even the most tainted of things. To aid a gorger in its all-consuming quest to feed, he can distend his jaw the same way as many serpents do in order to swallow larger prey. Ugh. That weren't enough, their mouths are crammed full of teeth that grow rapidly through their slimy gums, replacing themselves daily, or sometimes even more quickly. It's kind of insane, that. Unique characteristics. While fragile, Gorges are as close to a stealth ogre as you will find, surprising enemies at high speed with armor-piercing anti-infantry attacks. Very cool. Driven, half-mad, by hunger and solitude in the mountains, they are unbreakable combatants that fight in a frenzy. Very cool. Vanguard deployment completes the package of a terrifying prospect. Love it. Love it. Really cool units. And to have something... I mean, they're very similar to Mournguls, basically, in terms of utility. Like armor-piercing, anti-infantry, stalking, vanguard, monstrous infantry. So, very similar to Mournguls from the Vampire Coast roster. We also have a giant. Giants are enormous lumbering brutes that stride the world seeking battle, food and strong liquors. They are humanoid in appearance, although their features are coarse and misshapen, and they are dull-witted even when compared to an average ogre. An ogre tyrant, if he can restrain himself from attacking a giant to prove his own superiority, will often try to recruit the solitary wanderer into his tribe. Sharing food or intoxicating drink with the enormous lummox often does the trick, as to promises of an easy life, full of eating and drinking. Kindred spirits. Even though, usually in most instances that I've read, the giants tend to just be slaves, sort of leftover inbred slaves from the days of the Sky Titans that the ogres essentially genocided. So this is a nicer version. Which maybe that's the angle they're trying to push more, to be less on the whole genocide thing, because it's not that fun. Stonehorn. Stonehorns are massive beasts of muscle and violence. Hooray! That's what I like to read. Each several times the size of a Rhinox, and, if it can be believed, several times as dense. Intelligence is of little import to these great beasts. However, for each Stonehorn is quite literally a living fossil, its skeleton hardened by the same rock as the mountains where it makes its home. As legendary as their hardness is their belligerence. As legendary as their hardiness is their belligerence. That feels like a weirdly... it's hard to get the tone right on that sentence. Anyway, in fact, it is said that a Stonehorn will take any opportunity to headbutt something to death and trample its corpse into paste. Oh, cool. I mean, look at it, though. It's awful. Oh, I love it. Very cool looking unit. So, unique characteristics. Just absolutely rampages through enemies, sowing terror and dealing immense damage. Takes hard-headed to a whole new level, granting missile resistance, and once tamed, a good friend. So this first one, absolutely rampages through enemies, sowing terror, dealing immense damage. The variant that we have... actually, I guess maybe there's more than one variant. Maybe this is just the Stonehorn, then there's also the Stonehorn with the harpoon launcher. But the harpoon launcher variant seems to want to just be an artillery piece, similar to the Stegodon with the harpoon, with the ballista on top. It's it doesn't rampage as much as you'd like. So hopefully they can up the rampaging a bit. I don't mean like rampage, but the mechanic rampage. I just mean the description rampage, if you know what I mean. So Ogre Kingdoms missile monsters and beasts. Lead belchers. It is easy enough to spot ogres from a lead belcher unit, for their faces are scorched, they bear severe powder burns, regularly feature eye patches, and often resort to protective metal plates hammered into their faces. Oh, ogres. This is the legacy of point-blank detonations and an imperfect, if not downright clumsy, understanding of black powder. Regardless, these hardy and noticeably deaf ogres feel it is well worth sacrificing eyebrows, an eye, or even a few fingers for the chance to level their devastating cannons at a foe. Fair enough. Unique characteristics. Obscene range for missile infantry, hurling projectiles across the battlefield from their mighty cannons. What we did, you see, is take an ogre and give him a massive gun, So once his ammo's run out, he's still an ogre. Smart, see? There are significant armor-piercing properties to a massive ball of lead fired from a cannon larger than a man. True that. Then we have the Stonehorn with the harpoon launcher. Ogres have the greatest respect for Stonehorns, for the mammoth creatures are everything an ogre aspires to be. Big, violent, strong, and rock hard. Let's move on from that. They never tire of telling and retelling their favourite accounts of a Stonehorn's prowess, or of the gory aftermath they leave after one of their stone-cracking charges, whether it is the wide trails of dwarfs flattened and squished out of their armour, the wet crunching sounds a Stonehorn makes while ploughing through Skaven hordes, or fond remembrances of giants pile-driven deep into the ground. Such blood-drenched tales are greedily called for at any raucous ogre feast. Lovely. Unique characteristics. They put a harpoon launcher on a Stonehorn. Sounds about right. They took a Stonehorn, already a humongous monster, that can crush units beneath its hooves, and put a crossbow that fires spears on top of it. The ogre who invented this is essentially as close to Einstein as they ever got. Fair enough. So next up we have Fang Cavalry. Lovely stuff. So this is the Ogre Kingdoms Cavalry and Chariots section. High up the slopes of the Mountains of Morn lives a cave-dwelling beast that has always attracted the attention of the ogres, the Fang. Because it's in the Mountains of Morn, you see, and it's got fangs. I wonder if they'll draw attention to that. Aggressive predators that stalk the icy slopes, they are led by the largest of their kind, and working together they can hunt and kill anything that lives in the harsh domain. In that harsh domain, Mournfangs have a notorious tenacity, which makes even the most powerful of creatures think twice about confronting them. They are also huge, so, you know, what are they called? A pack animal, you know, that's that big is insane. So, you know, I thought the saber tusks were a bit much, but no, these things are. I mean, look at them; they're huge. Ogre tales tell of defiant Mournfangs refusing to give ground, and every tribe has a story about a beast continuing to fight long after drawing its last breath. Powered by thick muscles of purest muscle, a Mournfang surges towards the foe at a speed faster than their muscle-bulked frames would suggest, not slowed in the least by the large ogre or saddle atop its hairy back. Protected by thick skin and coarse shaggy hair, enemy arrows bounce off the oncoming beast or ping off the ogre's armour as harmless as hailstones. When they do smash into an enemy, the powerful Mournfangs chomp, slash, and stamp the foe whilst the ogres lay about them, swinging ponderous clubs to bludgeon them. Aww. Variants. Monstrous Cavalry. Again, that shouldn't be there, but that's fine. Iron Fist and Great Weapons. Very cool. Nice to see some variety there. Unique characteristics. Essentially giving an ogre even more weight and greatly increased speed, Mournfangs would be deadly on their own, never mind with a slab of meat on their backs. Their variants bring extra defense for extended engagements, or anti-large weapons for ogre civil wars, or whatever else an ogre counts as large. If all dogs go to heaven, we assume Mournfangs have their own closed-off area. That's good to know. Crushers. Despite the inhospitable weather, the Mountains of Morn teem with life. Herds of great woolly beasts are plentiful, crisscrossing the boulder-strewn slopes and snowy plateaus, seeking food. They are primeval creatures that have existed unchanged since the world was covered in ice. Crushers ride one such animal, the Rhinox. A hard-headed and hyper-aggressive beast, Rhinoxen are notoriously short-sighted and rely on their sense of smell to catch wind of predators. They are likely to lower their heads and charge anything they catch a whiff of that doesn't smell like a Rhinox, as the weather atop the icy realm is as likely to be blinding as anything else. Such short-sightedness isn't too much of a drawback. Also, their double-horned and stone-hard heads can cause considerable damage. Even a frost dragon would move hastily to get out of the way of a stampeding herd of the shaggy beasts. Variants, Iron Fist, and Great Weapons. Very fun. Unique characteristics. Essentially Mournfang riders that have decided to be incredibly, incredibly hard. Being crashed into by a Rhinox is somehow more painful than being crashed into by a Mournfang. Most who have experienced the latter wouldn't agree that was possible. Really quite stunningly massive. So I think Rhinox is a bit of they're a bit of a boring upgrade to Mournfangs. It's just kind of like, they're just better. They just hit harder, do more damage. I'm not sure about the speed. I think they might be a little bit slower. But, you know, it's a fairly straight upgrade. Just monstrous cavalry, you know. Artillery and war machines. Scrap launcher. The Noblast scrap launcher is a large and unconventionally built catapult pulled along by an enormous woolly beast. Its design is haphazard, the ramshackle construction seemingly built on the go, with a random collection of cast-off materials. With each stride of its shaggy beast of burden, the jury-rigged device teeters precariously, while a frenetic crew of Noblasts swarm about, running alongside, clambering on its ropes and pulleys like sailors amongst the rigging, or just hanging on for dear life. For all its slovenly appearance, the Noblast scrap launcher is a devastating engine of destruction. Sounds good. Unique characteristics. A massive range, even compared to other siege weapons. The Rhinox pulling this Noblast construction is happy to trample anyone in range should smaller units approach. So the scrap launcher is essentially a chariot. It is a chariot as well as an artillery piece. So if it needs to, it can get in the thick of the fight. It has an anti-infantry bonus. Yeah, it can be used as a chariot, even though it's a catapult. It's a very ogre siege engine, let's be honest. So while the ramshackle ammunition is plenty fine for scattering infantry formations, it's unlikely to penetrate thick armour. So it just throws stuff. whatever it's got, it'll just throw it, right? It's a scrap launcher. It's made out of scrap, it throws scrap. It's all very scrappy. Ironblaster, one of the castle-mounted guns that the Sky Titans used towards the end of their wars against the Ogres. Such is the weight of the vast contraption that a Rhinox which pulls it grunts and strains under pressure, and even the stone wheels that hold it up can only last a few battles before cracking under the immense weight. That's impressive. Its multiple cannonballs are able to tear apart a whole regiment in a maelstrom of noise and of violence, especially should the Ironblaster get in close. That's a terrifying prospect, so unique characteristics will annihilate anything it targets with huge weapon strength. The Rhinox pulling the Ironblaster is happy to fight back, as its scrap launcher cousins, and can run out of ammo fairly quickly. That doesn't really matter if you use it as a giant shotgun to blast things point blank. So it sounds hilarious, sounds a lot of fun, and it's good to see that is in the, has made the cut, even though we haven't seen it in any of the footage we've seen, basically. So yeah, a few little things, a few more variants that we haven't seen, and yeah, plenty of hero and lord choices in there as well, which is very cool. So no voice in our ears, but the more. A true melting pot of incredible strength. That's the Ogre Kingdoms roster. We'll be back tomorrow to talk campaign mechanics and starting locations for Greasus and Scrag. They're chomping at the bit to get out. Wonderful. Love to see that. So looking forward to seeing that. Because, yeah, I'd love to know their unique mechanics and, yeah, starting locations as well, see where they're going to start, to give us more information about the campaign map, which is something that we haven't had yet, really, apart from that one little shot in the, collector's edition thing, but not collector's edition, whatever the one they are doing is, you know by now, you know the score. If you don't know, check the videos in the playlist. But yeah, really cool stuff. Yeah, it's thorough. It's thorough. There's a huge amount of variety here. It looks really good. It looks really good. And it's very Ogre Kingdoms. They got everything covered and it looks amazing. Yeah, really cool stuff. I'm really looking forward to playing this. So guys, I guess that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments about all this, and the usual comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Take care, guys.